Simon Sound, and I got it. Oh yeah, those are good because now there's none of that. I got issues with X-Men, issue number 2 from 1963. First issue is that it's not in this big old book. I had to read it on the Marvel Comics reading app where the issue number 2 was. This goes from like 1 to 3, so I didn't read it in this big book. So I'm going to be rating this based on S for story, A for art, L for lettering, A for action, and D for drama. How does this book, this issue number 2, compare? So here's the story. We have the X-Men. They're having a little bit of a training. They're trained to be X-Men. They're comfortable with their powers. And so they're flying around. They're being a little bit of cocky with it. And there's the guy, his name is the Vanisher. And he's like, okay, I'm going to vanish. I'm going to appear and then vanish from places. Like, that allows me to steal, like, a lot of money. He even goes to the White House where he steals this, like, book. A very important book. It's like, I'm going to steal it. I've stolen it. Haha, you got him. You know, all that fun jazz. He has plans to go into the White House, but he's like, I'm giving you a week. Okay, I'm giving you a week. And this is enough time for the X-Men to prepare. So, of course, Professor Xavier is able to pick up that the Punisher has arrived into this city earlier today. He's able to track what the Punisher is doing. So he's like, okay, X-Men, you guys got to go to the Danger Room. The Danger Room, as it sounds, is dangerous. There's a lot of dangerous things there. It's going to test your skills and capabilities. And, of course, the X-Men, they push themselves. They're like, oh, wow, I can't believe it. We're actually incredibly weak. I'm so glad that we're able to train, right? And so they have a fun few training montages. And then they go to the Washington, D.C., where the Punisher's at. And they're there, not the Punisher, I just said his name. Oh, the guy who vanishes, the Vanisher. Okay, the Vanisher is there, and the X-Men appear there, and they're there to stop the Vanisher. They're like, okay, we can stop the Vanisher, and the Vanisher, as you might guess by his name, keeps vanishing, and he keeps blipping out of existence. He steals like these plans from the White House, and it's like, okay, what is happening? How do we stop this? Professor Xavier is also there, and you know how he stops the Vanisher? He blocks the Vanisher's abilities to use his vanishing powers, like in his mind. He's able to do that with like his mental powers. So he's basically makes it so it's impossible for the Vanisher to vanish. And then he gets caught by the police, right? But then the police is like, oh, the X-Men, we hate you. Or, oh, the X-Men, we love you. There's a lot of that. The very beginning of the X-Men get caught by like a bunch of fans who just want to kiss all over them. At the end, the X-Men have to deal with people who like hate them and like are trying to arrest them. But like the end is they got the Vanisher, and I'm like, oh man, the Vanisher is a cool character. I want to see more of the Vanisher personally. I just think he has a lot of potential for like a lot of social power. Like it's teased a little bit that he has some social power, like after he does like a bunch of vanishing, and then people are like, oh my goodness, Vanisher, we want to praise you, or give you whatever you need. And this is in between like the X-Men training and the X-Men going to Washington, D.C. to stop the Vanisher. So that's pretty much the story. I like the story a lot. I was engaged with it. It's pretty wordy. There's so many words, but I actually really like the story a lot, and I do like the Vanisher as a villain. So the art, I like the art. The art's colorful as always. I'd say this art though, compared to like the last issue, I'd say there's like not as many bright, vibrant colors except for like the X-Men suits. are pretty vibrant and colorful. I do like the style of doing line art and then doing like shading within the line art, so it's just like line art shading. And then color, just like a flat wash of color. I like that style a lot. I find that to be, it's not distracting at all, and it's just the right amount of detail for each panel. And the panels were actually pretty easy for me to read from one to the other. And the text bubbles were in such a place that I was able to read down the page pretty easily. So I liked that. The lettering, like I said, it was easy to read. The automatopoeias, I didn't notice a ton of automatopoeias, but I did like the amount of automatopoeias they were. I feel like the automatopoeias chosen were to, like, what is it? Exacerbate, like make it such a big impact that this is the sound going on right now. And I like that. It, like, contributed to the impact of the panel. And I really liked that. Plus, you know, the text is easy to read. Whenever there's emphasis on certain words, those would be bolded. Like, this has a lot of stylized bolding and italics to the bubbling, but it's not too distracting. Plus, one Professor Xavier thinks it's in a thought bubble, which is cool. I like that. So then there's the action. I'd say the action is when we have the X-Men are in the danger room, and also they're bickering with each other at this point. Like, it seems like they hate each other, which is fun. Like, they hate and love each other. Like, on one hand, they're going to work together, but on the other hand, they got some differences that, like, whenever those differences are brought up and causing a lot of conflict, then they, like, butt heads and, like, shoot their weapons at each other, and then Professor Xavier has to come and be like, hey, stop doing that. We got a very important mission. And then also when we have the Vanisher versus the X-Men, I thought that was pretty cool. I liked how that was drawn. I do like action pages because they're pretty easy and fast to read through. Although when it comes to this issue of X-Men, I noticed, like, even with the amount of action, there's just so much text. And so it's, instead of like, oh, I can just look at what they're doing. Oh, they're doing one pose and then doing another pose and then doing another pose, and that's just like the panels, and it's just showing them what they're doing. That's not what this is. It's showing them, like, kind of suspended in motion from, like, one action to the next action, but there's, like, a bunch of text bubbles surrounded them. And that, I think that slowed the pacing of the action down a little bit, but at the same time, I did like that the words were there because I could, like, live in the action a little bit more and also explain the action, what was happening. The fine, minute details that weren't drawn were, like, written. And I really appreciate that. Then, the drama. There's, like I said, there's a drama between the X-Men. There's some disagreements brewing together, especially with Iceman. What's funny about Iceman is he's really cool, but he's also cold. And when you encounter somebody you're trying not to be cold with, like maybe a friend or something, and you're cold to them, then you got some conflict arising between them. So there's a lot of that. But other than that, Cyclops actually doesn't really do a lot of conflict. It's mostly Iceman, and, like, the Beast doesn't even do conflict. It's just Iceman. It's just Iceman, dude. Oh man, Iceman's so cool. So I really liked this issue of X-Men #2. So for story, I'd give it a solid 4. The art's a solid 4. The lettering is a solid 4. The action is a solid 4. And the drama is a solid 5. So, what's math? I'd give this, it's a solid 21 out of 25. That's what I got issues with.
Oh yeah, those are good because now there's not